If you've been researching offshore tax strategies or living as a nomad capitalist for any period of time, you've probably come across a social media group or a forum somewhere where someone has mentioned 183 days. And if you're new to this stuff, you may be wondering, what does 183 days have to do with moving offshore and legally reducing my taxes? Well, I call this the 183-day rule. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why this is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the world of international tax. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. Here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go offshore to reduce their taxes, protect their options, and enhance their freedom with a second passport, and take part in the new lifestyle and investment opportunities in new boom markets that we identify all around the world. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And what I want to talk to you about today is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the world of international tax, which is the 183-day rule. Now, I get it. I spent time most of my entire adult life living in the United States. I have friends and I work with folks from all over the world, from Canada, from the UK, from all over the place, people who are paying 40 and 50%, even 60% in taxes that turns out to be millions of dollars over the course of just a few years. They're not getting millions of dollars worth of value, and so you want to go overseas to reduce those taxes, and there are legal ways to do that. But if you're using this 183-day marker, then you're probably gonna get in trouble. And so the 183-day rule works from the concept that a country will deem you a tax resident after 183 days. Now, this does not apply to every country. You have tax-free countries like the UAE or Vanuatu. You have territorial tax countries that focus not on days, but the source of the income, i.e. money made overseas is not taxed, money made domestically is. You have lump sum tax countries where they charge you one flat tax, like the commonly known Swiss program and others that have come up. But if you're living in what's called a residential tax country, right, a country that if you are a resident of the country for tax purposes, they tax your worldwide income subject to treaties and credits, then this days test comes into place. Most developed countries in the West are residential tax countries, with the exception of the United States, which is a citizenship-based tax country. So the United States, if you're spending 6 months in the United States, you're pretty much screwed, okay? You can move to Puerto Rico, you can move offshore, but generally speaking, you're not going to get 6 months. You might get a little bit less in the most extreme circumstances, but you're generally going to be spending less. So outside of the United States, the misconception is that if you can keep your number of days in the country under 183, that you're magically going to be fine. Different countries call this different things. Certain countries will call it the days test, for example. But what people don't understand is there are different tax tests in most developed countries that will apply. There may be 3 or 4, even 5 different tests, and the days test is only one of them. So this common mythology where if you spend 182 days in a country where the days test is triggered at 183, that you're magically going to be fine, simply doesn't work. I've heard this for years. This goes back to the way things used to work before countries really started getting tough, back when traveling around the world wasn't nearly so inexpensive or easy, and most people didn't leave the country because, as I always say, 25 years ago, there's no way you would move to Malaysia. There was nothing happening in Malaysia. And then they built the Twin Towers, and then business started developing, and then gradually the country really started becoming a better and better place, to where now, I would argue, you can have a better standard of living as a successful person living in the heart of Kuala Lumpur than you can in the heart of Sydney or New York, for example. What people are looking at is a situation where that didn't exist before, okay? Back when the government said, yeah, all right, fine, if you're not here that often, whatever, we'll just accept it. Now that you have so many international businesses, you have so many people traveling, governments have really made it difficult to leave their country for tax purposes. And so, we work with a lot of folks in Australia, the UK, Canada, those are some of the big ones, other countries as well. But if you're spending 182 days, or if in some countries the trigger is 180, if you're spending 179, that's not going to be enough because other triggers are going to come in. For example, there may be a test of, what is your center of life? There may be a test of where is your family? There may be a test of, where are your parents from? There are numerous other different tests to where I had a gentleman not so long ago. He wanted to live in a country in Europe, and he was going to buy a house and buy a car there. And he said, well, I'm only going to spend, 3 or 4 months a year. I said, are you going to spend any more time than that somewhere else? He said, no, I'll just travel around the rest of the time. That could potentially put him at great risk because that is his most substantial home, even though he's well under the 6-month test, at 3 or 4 months, it is basically becoming his center of life. And so countries look at all kinds of things, literally down to, where's your dentist, right? Where are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce, okay? And so what I tell people is, if you want to go offshore, it's not just about where your company's based. You can't just live in Germany or Australia and put your company in Belize and forget about it. Okay, we've talked about that before many times. Controlled foreign corporation rules, mind and management, permanent establishment, many different tests. This is where my tax-friendly quadrant comes in. Your business needs to leave, but also you need to leave. And that's where people say, okay, well, I'll just spend this 182 days. No, because, again, if that's in your most substantial home and you're just traveling around the rest of the time, you're not going to be able to take advantage of any of the provisions to call somewhere else home. And you're going to get dragged into the net. And so the point that I wanted to make to you from all that is you really need to just, demonstrate that you are leaving. What I tell people is the easiest way to show them that you're leaving is to actually leave, right? When I go to Canada or Australia or New Zealand or Germany or any of these countries, I go there for 2 weeks at a time. Maybe I'll go there for a month in the summer. I check into a hotel. I don't go for 4 months in a row and stay in my mother's basement and drive my old car that was sitting in the backyard around, So you have to really show the intent. That's the easiest way to do it. Because what I want you to understand is, as more and more people have been kind of arbitraging these days and trying to, cut it as close as possible, governments have come up with ways to not let you do that. Now, there are some countries where they just have a strict days test. Literally, it's if you're 183, all bets are off. If you're at 182, have a nice day, leave you alone, right? Those countries are generally more in emerging countries. Some Latin American countries that aren't very tax-friendly have policies like that. So, if you follow my trifecta approach where you have 3 different homes, you spend about 4 months in each, you could do that. 4 months in that place, hey, you didn't fail the days test, so you're good. Some Eastern European countries have this, right? And then other places around the world. But the most developed countries are not going to be like that. So the arbitrage opportunity is live and spend time in countries that are very livable, but that are not at the level of an Australia or New Zealand. Live in high-tax countries that have not gotten around to really bothering foreigners too much. Perhaps because it's not in their best interest to. They'd love for you to come and spend 4 months a year there and not pay tax, other than paying sales tax, VAT, whatever it is locally. They want you to invest in their economy. They don't want to get on your nerves. But those are the kind of countries you have to look at. Okay? If I were to start, spending 5 months of my year in Australia, I'd be worried. I've had 2 different gentlemen that I've worked with who have said they made too many visits to the United Kingdom, and they actually got letters from the tax authority, from HMRC, saying, why are you here so much, right? And so increasingly, a lot of these countries, immigration, border control, and the tax authority are talking, and they will be asking you, why were you here so much? Especially if you are a citizen, they can easily track and say, well, it doesn't seem like you're not living here because you've been here for 3, 4, or 5 months a year. Oh, and by the way, we saw that you had never sold your car. And oh, by the way, we saw that you never sold your house and that it's not leased out, it's just sitting empty. And that can really get you in trouble. And so if you're following this 183 rule, I think that you're going to get yourself into trouble. Increasingly, what I tell people is, mindset matters. And if the mindset is, how do I do the least amount possible? How do I do the bare minimum and try and screw the government over? And they're too stupid, they won't know. That's going to get you in trouble because the mindset is we're trying to cut corners. The mindset that you want to have is, I'm leaving my country. I'm going to come back perhaps. I'll be a tourist. Whatever a tourist looks like, I'll come for 2 weeks at a time. I'll come for a month at a time. Maybe I'll do that once a year. Maybe I'll do that 4 times a year. But I'm acting as if I am someone who's going and living overseas. I'm going to establish a home somewhere overseas. I'm going to establish the trappings of life somewhere overseas. And then I'll just come back as a tourist, right? And I may drive a rental car. I may live in an Airbnb, whatever. And so, being in the right mindset, I think, gets you where you need to be. Focusing on 183 and how to shave it just under, you're going to get in trouble in most developed countries. The good news is, if you want to live in all over the world, you can arbitrage that to your benefit in other emerging countries that are off the radar, in places that I think are great places to live and invest. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.